So the thing about like trying to balance, especially like with skating and snowboarding, and
Right.
I just can't do it.
You can't balance on a skateboard is what you're saying?
I've never been able to ride a skateboard my whole life.
Rollerblades?
Rollerblades are different. It's 4 stable.
Wheels per foot.
No. Rollerblades.
No, you're talking
I
about
cannot do rollerblades. Roller skates, I
roller
can.
skates.
Stop.
Anything balance. Like my son is a surfer.
Right.
My 9-year-old can surf. I have never been able to stand on a surfboard one time.
Not even one time.
Not real.
I'm a skier, but I'm not a snowboarder.
Wow.
Listen, pickleball, I play for a few hours. Golf, I really enjoy the game. Basketball, I grew up my whole life playing.
Come on.
Football, I can throw and catch. Baseball, I love the game of baseball. The Mariners are winning
Go
right
Mariners.
now. While we're recording this podcast, just to go on
Literally
record,
right now.
6-3, middle of the 6th inning.
Come on.
Wow.
The Mariners are winning.
Let's
In
go.
the
And tonight, the
playoffs.
Dodgers will win against the Padres without a question. What I'm talking to you about is I cannot balance. Leadership leaning. Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, welcome everybody. This is episode, don't know. We are very excited to be talking about the subject of leadership. And as always, thank you to every person that likes and subscribes and comments and shares.
Yes, sir.
Just means the world to us and helps us get the message
Right.
out, which we are all about trying to encourage and help as many leaders as possible. Our whole thing about this podcast is that we're trying to lean into the subject of leadership just to get a little bit better.
A little bit better
We
every day.
were earlier in one of the meetings today. We watched back our broadcast,
Yep.
our YouTube,
Oh, wow.
and the YouTube this week just was pristine,
Crispy.
sensational.
How do you get better from that?
And I said to the guys, the first week we went to this new venue that we're meeting in. It's called the Miguel Contreras Learning Complex.
You need an acronym.
It's a lot. And I always say, don't you dare leave out the learning complex. The week 1 was so atrocious. I said, do you guys want to put up and compare it to week 1? They're like, no, I don't ever want to see that sin, that scarlet letter again. I said, listen, as promised, progress.
There you go.
I cannot promise perfection, but I can always promise
A little better.
a little bit better.
It's a little bit better.
That's what this podcast is. So thank you to everybody that is leaning in and trying to find, as I'm struggling with, balance in their personal life and their professional
Time
life. We are joined today by, it's not a small deal. It's not every day we get to have a Husky
Let's
Whoa.
on the program. This is a Washington
know.
boy.
What?
Stop.
I didn't know that.
This boy, this represents 253 right
This-
here.
I knew that. I knew
Washington.
that.
You
Yes.
knew 253?
Yes, yes,
Kent.
yes.
This is a Washington
Wow.
Husky.
Look at
What
that.
year did you graduate from the university?
2011.
Woo!
Jeez.
2011 with a degree in what?
Business.
Of course.
Yeah, well,
Foster.
You're
it
putting it
has
to work.
it has
School of
clearly paid off.
It has.
And-
It's actually relevant for today.
And by the way, the Huskies, we did start off 4-0. We are now 4-2, but we're going to turn it around
100%.
as
Have no
promised. Progress from last year to this year.
Yes.
Vance, thank you so much for
for
joining
having
us
me.
today. It means the world. Phenomenal leader, phenomenal business leader, entrepreneur. I'm excited, obviously, for our community, our church. We use Overflow.
Yeah.
We want to be using it more,
Right.
Go.
as in the user activity.
Yes.
We're going to learn a little bit more about that. But I'm excited to have you on today because I want to talk about business,
Love that.
leadership. Talk to me about, we'll get into what you guys are doing, but I love hearing the Genesis stories
Okay.
about how leaders started stuff.
Sure.
Usually people like yourself, what I have found is that they found a need,
Yeah.
something was missing, and you filled in a gap. That's what most great apps have done.
That's right.
We don't have this, and so I created it.
Yep.
What did you create that you saw this is missing, and I got to step in and I'm going to make the world a better place?
I love that you said need, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they start with the solution first.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing in Web3. That's what we're seeing in crypto is we got solutions chasing problems. And so if you start with the need though, You start with the purity of a pain.
Yeah.
And a problem. If you actually go deep in that pain and that problem, a byproduct of you understanding and empathizing with that pain the most is the best solution. So you don't need to fall in love with your solution or your product. You got to fall in love with the pain.
Wow.
You got to fall in love with the process of empathizing with what the problem is. The problem that we saw in the giving space at large, my company's called Overflow, we're a giving platform, is that in churches, charities, nonprofits, universities, people that are trying to raise funds to be able to accomplish their mission and vision, they are directing everybody to give from their checking account.
Right.
And just like Kevin Hart said, right?
Very good. Very good.
The way that my checking and savings works, I just got to transfer, but what I found is that we're directing everybody to give from their checking account, which is their leftovers.
Yep.
That's the fact of the matter. When you look at the data, 90% of wealth is in non-cash assets. But never once in a church service or in a vision gala or a heart for the house are we even giving the option for people to give directly from their stock portfolio or their crypto wallet. Just imagine if we did that. Just imagine if people had the imagination to understand that, I could give from my appreciated gains. I could give from house money. I could give from my overflow. And so that's the opportunity that we solved and that we saw. And so what we did was we created a platform because we understood that churches and charities, they actually don't communicate to give from your stock portfolio because it's a very complicated process. Before Overflow, a donor would have to basically take the information from the church.
I remember these days. That's why I'm laughing. I've been through this.
And then they would give it to their broker. Their broker would tell them, okay, cool. Like you just have to download this form, this PDF. You got to physically fill it out and you got to fax it in. To send this donation in an Amazon generation. Like nobody's doing that.
Nobody.
And so when we understand that is the problem, we solved it by creating a fully online solution where somebody can do it completely online. And
Crazy.
So, that's essentially the origin story of Overflow, but it came from my background as the executive pastor at a church in Silicon Valley called Vive.
And tell everybody a look, because I've heard the story. It's I think it's riveting. The pain and the need that you guys encountered. Yeah. The pain, the need that, because I love that. You can't be in love with your solution. It reminds me, I forget who was saying this the other day, or someone sent me an article talking about customer service. And they're saying the problem for most companies is their customer service, their loyalty is to the brand, not to the customer.
Exactly.
So even customer service is self-serving.
Yep.
It's not even actually trying to meet the need.
Right.
You put yourself in the pain, the need of the user. Where did that pain come to you? Like, how did that land on your front door? What were you guys facing that allowed you to be aware of the pain?
Yeah. So I serve as executive pastor at our church. We're based in Palo Alto, California. We actually just bought a new building. So technically we're in a city called Mountain View, right across the street from Google, actually. And so in 2019, I personally experienced the pain. So there was about a dozen tech people in my church that were like, hey, Vance, I love what the church is doing. I want to participate in this year-end giving campaign, but I can give a lot more generous if I can give from my Facebook RSUs, my Facebook stock. I work at Google, I work at Apple, I work at Amazon, I work at Microsoft. They give me these grants. I can actually give a lot more and participate in all that we're doing if I could just give from my stock portfolio. And literally at the time, I didn't know how to receive those gifts. And then I understood this manual process that we just talked about. And so I was like, it was just an experiment at first. 2019, October, I created the first version of Overflow with an engineering friend. And then November 8th, 2019, we just emailed our church and we said, hey, a lot of you have asked about donating stock. It seems to be really difficult. We created an online solution for you. It's called Overflow. You can do so now completely online by just clicking this link. And apparently you can save a lot on taxes by giving through stock and crypto. I thought we were going to raise a few $1,000s. Literally across 3 days, 32 people responded and we raised $1.1 million in 3 days.
Jeez.
Like money in the brokerage account.
My God.
And so I was like, okay, sample set of one. And this was when kind of the Holy Spirit started impressing upon me this can't just be for your community.
Yeah.
If this works in your community, this can potentially work across the nation. And that's when we went on the journey of talking to other people that ran nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, even corporations. We serve corporations now in their giving efforts. And so we started to see that this problem wasn't just with pastors, but was with really anybody that was trying to raise funds for their mission. Yeah.
And so you go on this mission, you start to discover this whole world. Talk to me about those beginning days when you started to find different iterations of the app and the team that you know started to gather, and what were those beginning? Because I always love those hustle beginning, the origin stories of it. You know, you discover the pain, but then you got a solution on your hand. And how did those early days go for you? And what were some things that you stand out to you as a leader? Were you going, man, I didn't expect this. I didn't. Not only maybe you didn't anticipate that there was such a great problem, bigger than just your local community, but what are some other leadership things you were facing and going like, man, I got to change this. I got to evolve here.
Yeah, what I learned. Actually, we're sitting here in LA right now. I learned that starting a technology company is really similar to Hollywood's process.
Wow.
What I mean by that is, you know, a lot of people subscribe to this leadership process in the Silicon Valley. It's called lean startup, right? It's called getting to a minimum viable product and iterating and iterating and iterating.
Right.
And there's some tenets and first principles that I agree with there. Like you always want to iterate, you always want to innovate, and we want to get one step better each time, right? So I subscribe to that. But I think sometimes what that can lead to is a lack of orienting around a main vision.
Wow.
And so you can iterate yourself away from your original mission and vision.
Wow.
Yep.
Right? So
so good.
I actually like the Hollywood model a little bit better. Is you have a vision, you write a script, and you get funding for that script. And then once you get funding for that script, you start casting the members.
Great.
Right? So in the same way, I needed to create a mission and vision statement. Without vision, the people perish. We know that biblically. I needed to create a mission and vision statement. I needed to rally financiers. I need to rally venture capitalists. I live in the Silicon Valley, Sand Hill Road, San Francisco, right? I needed to pitch my idea. And we want to talk about the grind of it. Pitched 50 people.
Right.
All no's.
Totally.
The reason why I ask this question is because I think sometimes we hear stories like yours and the success that you've had, and you know it's insane what you've been able to accomplish. But I think that like I just always love to understand like, wait, so you went through pain like I went through pain,
man.
Because sometimes we do think the grass is greener on the other side,
100%.
or we do think that it was easy for them. I don't know a leader that has just gone by and floated into success.
Nope. And you get really discouraged when you go through that pain, right? The 50th no, I'm ready to throw in the towel, to be honest. And I don't know, it was maybe, you know, God, it was through Twitter, maybe the Holy Dove. I don't know. Somebody tweeted, rejection is my insight.
Hello.
I was like, I need to reframe my perspective. You know, 50 no's, I could have been in the despair of my discouragement.
Right.
Or I could choose to believe that I had 50 iterations of insight. I had 50 pieces of feedback that I can iterate on, and I can understand what's not resonating.
Right.
How can I now clarify my vision? How can I clarify our plan? How can I clarify our script?
It's great.
Right. And I did that. And then also, something that I learned is that I was trying to convince people about what I was doing. I needed to teach people what I was doing.
Right.
When we were building the product of Overflow, I had to realize I'm actually the subject matter expert in the room. I was going at it backwards, like, oh, they hold all the keys, they have all the money. I need to form function to what I think they want to hear. Instead of going in not with an arrogance but with an assertiveness that you know, I've learned something, I got an insight. And so something that was really interesting is that investors, people that want to believe with you and actually back you with money, they actually want to be in on the secret.
Totally.
That's so good.
They want to be a co-conspirator.
I love that.
With you. So if you can invite them into your world, into the insight that you found, and they can feel like they could be part of that journey, all of a sudden it's not a desperation, it's an invitation.
So good.
It's an invitation to be part. Hey, whether you invested in it or not, we're doing it, but would love for you to be a part of the journey.
Why don't a lot of people get that right? What you just hit on. I love that. How come you think a lot of people can't make that switch, that turn?
Insecurity.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Insecurity. And everybody has it.
Sure.
Everybody has it. You know, you go into any room, whether you're introvert or extrovert, everybody in that room is actually insecure at some level.
To a certain degree.
Yeah. And so, especially if you have that proclivity to be insecure in a room or in a space, you have to predetermine in your mind, I'm going to make a decision. And you can overcome insecurity with a lot of different practical mechanisms like preparation. Right. You're a communicator, Pastor Chad. Like a lot of times is the more prepared I am, the more confident I can be, the clearer I can think, and the more in the moment I can deliver a message.
That's right.
And so there are some keys that you can do, especially if you have that proclivity. But I would say most of the time it's just you're not confident.
Right.
And you're not convicted in maybe the thing that you have that's really valuable.
When you started this down this process, the discovery of pain, and you send this email out and 32 people jump on and you raise that guy, that leader that was then, the iteration, the version of you then compared to the version of you today.
Yeah. What
have you personally been able to add to your repertoire? What have you grown? I always hold on to that verse in Luke 2:52. One of my favorite verses about Jesus. He grew in wisdom, stature, and favor with God and man. Yeah. So you're growing. Hopefully you were growing in wisdom.
Yeah.
Hopefully you got clearly have more favor in your life than you did that day. You know, that's obvious. Maybe you had the favor, but it was still being played out. If you could go back and you look at that person, that leader, then what has been because I think when you start talking about confidence, I think one of the ways that you develop confidence is you do get into bigger rooms.
Yeah.
And you do learn, they're just like me.
Yep, 100%.
Well, they have issues, that old saying, don't ever meet your heroes. Yeah. I don't like that saying in the light of, because you'll be disappointed.
Sure.
I think you should be encouraged.
Yeah.
But they're just like me.
They're just like me.
They trying to raise their kids like me. They got bills like me. Bishop Jakes, I heard him say one time, currently right now, all your heroes are getting punched in the face.
Wow.
And what the reason why I relate with that is you also are getting punched.
Yeah.
Yep.
You also are dealing with your own insecurities. If you could go back and look at that version of you versus this version of you, what are some things you could tell as a leader? I've actually been stretched and now I understand this, or I participate in this. Or what's been added to you since then?
Yeah. I think that leader in the beginning had an unbridled optimism.
Great.
I think that leader in the beginning took the step out of naivety. I wouldn't necessarily call it a blind faith, but it was definitely not a fully informed one. And I think that's a grace.
Totally.
On the starting season.
Totally.
I think if I knew everything that I know now,
you have to have that.
I wouldn't have started.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about growing wisdom and in stature, it's actually part of the process, right? Like you'll get a measure each step of the way.
Yes.
You'll get a grace each step of the way to handle another layer of complexity. And so something that God has been speaking to me recently in my leadership is stewardship. And so, in the beginning days when you we've raised $13 million for Overflow for some of the top VCs in the Valley, as well as some pretty prolific angel investors like the COO of Venmo is behind us, COO of Yelp, the CEO of Instacart, some pretty
household names.
Yeah. Prolific leaders that are speaking into our world and we're really appreciative of. And so you start kind of growing in wisdom and in grace and in stature. And when you get that funding initially, your unbridled confidence can lead you to start feeling like you're invincible.
You're reckless almost.
To be honest, because you got a lot of cash in the bank, you can make riskier investments, you can maybe grow faster than you should. And so what we've learned in this season is stewardship. And with the recent market downturn, for us in the startup ecosystem, there was a fear across the whole ecosystem that customers are not going to want to buy because prices are depressed, portfolios are depressed. People are not going to want to do deals anymore like they were doing 2 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. I took it as the biggest blessing.
Yeah.
It allowed us to reset and to refresh. Okay, all right, if this is what the runway is, how do we extend this runway? How do we continue to be better stewards? How do we make each team more effective? How do we extend this runway so we have as many shots on goal to see the vision of this company actually come through fruition? And so a naivety has grown in stature to a little bit of wisdom. I'm still growing.
Yeah. A little bit better.
I got a little bit of wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes you have to just go through the experience of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like I always think, like, remember that old song growing up, can't go under it, can't go around it, can't go over it. I guess I'll go through it.
Yep.
And you got to go through it. You got to, I'm laughing with you. Like I would tell that young leader, don't start it. But we say it jokingly, but I feel the same way. We moved here 8 years ago, started our community 7 years ago. I would tell that guy, run to Austin with the rest of them. Go to Nashville with everybody else. I'm kidding. I wouldn't trade it. You wouldn't trade it because it's the thing. It's the vehicle that has been chosen to develop that which was missing in your life. I want to go back to a word you use. I'm glad you used it because I want to go there with you. Is the word stewardship.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about financial stewardship and what you've learned about it since starting this thing, because I saw a Dave Ramsey quote, which I'm not going to get into the Dave Ramsey stuff today, but I really enjoyed this quote that he said. He said, money problems are never about money.
Nope.
They are a symptom of a bigger issue.
Yep.
When you hear that, what does that make you think of? And what have you learned about money management?
Yeah, money is a terrible master.
Woo!
It's an incredible servant. And that's really the mission of Overflow, is to inspire people to give. Giving people don't greed, and greedy people don't give.
Hold on, I just want to just pause, because I want to make sure, wow. If we made graphics for this podcast, we would make that one a graphic. Money is a terrible master, but it is a what? Servant?
Incredible servant.
Incredible.
And then he followed it up with that next bar. Giving people don't greed, and greedy people don't give. Right.
We have never in the history of Leadership Leaning made graphics. I think we're going to make our first two graphics on the pod, baby.
Yes.
Keep going. I'm all ears.
No, I love it because that's what I've learned about money.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because it's all in the Bible.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Proverbs 11:24. The world of the generous gets larger and
That's
larger.
Right.
The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. Let's make it really practical on the tithe, which is, in some contexts, in some communities, is kind of taboo.
Right.
But think about this. Let's talk about it from a pragmatic standpoint, right? You've seen a personal finance app launch every month since mint.com. Why? Because none of them work.
No.
Wow.
All it does is it categorizes your expenses in a more beautiful way. And when you see that you spend more than you make, you turn it off.
Yeah, that's it.
I literally have friends that don't want to open up their bank account.
No, they're afraid.
Because it's probably overdraft.
Yeah.
And so you got to think about, okay, from a pragmatic standpoint, most people are making 100 and spending 110.
That's it.
The Bible says live on 90.
Yeah.
Live on 90.
Can you live on 90? Can you give me 10? I mean, all of it's mine. But
all of it.
Can you give me 10 and I'll redeem the 90?
Right.
I'm into multiplication, actually. I'll multiply.
Totally.
The 90. And we can get into depth about that. But what I've learned about money management is that nobody has margin. Nobody thinks about margin. And I got convicted in my own business. I was like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like, we have all these articles. We did Series A funding. Like, we got money in the bank. And then we're aggressive. right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with being assertive and moving fast.
Yeah.
As a startup, you wanna move with speed because that's one of the only competitive advantages that you have. But you can do so in a way while being a good steward. You can do so in a way where you have first principles, where you have frameworks in place, where you're creating margin.
Right.
And so simple frameworks personally for people that I've heard people use. This is not the only thing that you can use, but 80-10-10, right?
That's good. Yeah.
You understand that, hey, first 10 goes to God, 10 goes to my savings. Cool. I got 80
That's right.
left.
Right.
We're talking about budgets. Like this is really practical.
Really practical.
But the principle behind it is margin.
That's exactly
Can
right.
you live in a way where you're set up for margin? You're not living on tilt all the time.
And don't you think that's why people are so stressed out?
I think it would probably be in the top 3.
It has
not
to
the
be.
number 1.
Yeah. And if we talk about money issues aren't about money, it's like if you're probably not going to have margin in your rest, margin in your family, that's going to translate straight to your finances anyways. Then it's just cyclical because I don't have money. I got to work harder. Then I have poor spending habits. Yeah, it's the margin thing. It's and I think there's a lot of leaders, like you don't learn this in school. There's no budget classes in school. And leaders are thrust into positions because of their talent.
Yeah.
And once they're there, there's no framework, like you're saying, budgets, all that stuff. It's so important.
And by the way, like I went to Bible college, I graduated in 4 years. I went through all the classes. Not one was about money.
Wow.
Thankfully, I have very good parents that are very good stewards over finances.
Yeah.
But even then, it was just modeled for me. It wasn't taught.
No.
Rarely does a leader listening to this podcast, I would venture to say, 85 to 90% of them, they've just kind of listened to a Dave Ramsey soundbite or, seen something from Grant Cardone or seen something from and just tried their best to apply the principles that are out there. And that's why I think leaders are so hungry to learn. That's why it's, someone talks about a Sheba. They're like, maybe I got to invest in a Sheba. Maybe I got to get a doji.
It's already too late.
I thought you were talking about the Queen of Sheba for a second.
No, come on, man. Come on, man. No, I'm just saying, people are so hungry to learn.
100%.
And no one's taught them.
Yeah.
Who has impressed you stepping into this space, this finance space? Who has impressed you? I really subscribe to some of their thoughts and principles about money. Who has impressed you? Because when I think about Silicon Beach, I think there's a lot of money going on, a lot of creativity. Yeah. Who have you looked at or been around? Who are some names or you follow on social media? You go, I really like some of their thoughts about money.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, first and foremost, my pastor, he's brilliant at teaching it. We're actually in a money series right now called House Money.
Okay.
So it's a pretty dope series.
Shout out to Pastor Adam Smokle.
Come on, Pastor Adam Smokle at Vibe Church. So, I mean, I look up to him. He talks a lot about margin, not just financially, but personally with your family. So I really look up to my pastor. Dave Ramsey is the GOAT. The GOAT on money. Dave Ramsey is the GOAT. To be honest, I think that...
Yo, and he's mad savage, bro.
Savage.
It's entertainment at this point.
Fam. He's like, to me, Dave, I didn't know he was that cool. To me, Dave Ramsey is cool as a bird because he'd look at somebody like, you're an idiot.
He's like, you have a credit card?
Yo, these people, when they call into the show, they got to know. They got to know when they call in, I'm going to get destroyed. Yeah.
He's like, you don't buy your house in cash?
What do you mean?
It's like
no, I live in California.
Yeah. Sorry, bro. But I love the nation of Texas. Anyways, Dave.
Yes. To be honest, I think there is kind of a toxic culture around money motivation influencers.
Yes.
Right?
Wow.
This is what I've learned. If you are primarily making money for yourself, you're going to hit a cap.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Right. And so when I hear verses like the world of the generous gets larger and larger, what that tells me is that if I'm living to give,
that's right,
I'm living no cap.
Yep.
Right. Because all of a sudden my purpose for earning and my purpose for getting income is not just for myself.
That's right.
It's for others.
Right.
And all of a sudden creativity, all of a sudden entrepreneurship, all of a sudden this unlimited nature that you can tap into. right?
What is the thought on that? The generous scheme.
Exactly.
They're thinking creatively. How do I do this?
Thinking creatively about it, and it's scientifically proven. So if you actually give financially, not of your time, not talking about volunteering, I'm talking if you give money, it releases a dopamine on the level of food and shelter.
Jeez.
Right? The opposite is true. So obviously when you give, it releases this dopamine of safety and security. If I took your wallet from you or your water bottle from you, it will release a vasopressin that instills fear. So even the way that we're wired to give more than we take.
That's right.
It's really
scientifically,
good.
Right. All of a sudden your nature changes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not even just your spirit physically.
Yeah.
You'll start changing.
It's amazing. I saw Dave Ramsey say one time, he said, rich people ask how much. And he said something like, poor people ask, can I use credit or something like that? But like his point was rich people are always asking like, cause they understand the value of a dollar.
Exactly.
And leading this business, leading this company, trying to take more ground, how much have you appreciated a dollar? How much have you had to apply looking over the budget and looking over the cents? It reminds me a few years ago, Balaam and I, who you know Balaam, we were sitting with this lady who was an accountant, and she said, I cannot encourage you enough to comb through the finances of your organization. You will find so much room to cut out.
Yes.
Have you learned that the more your world grows, the more this company takes off? Do you find yourself fighting the urge to just coast like you talked about? I got money in the bank.
100%.
How have you had to apply the diligence of budget practically?
Keeping it at the forefront of my mind, right? And so what I do is I have a balance sheet report that I look at, just our balances every day.
Great.
Same.
Right? So if I see some sort of big dip or big increase, I want to know why.
What happened?
Right. And then we get monthly reports, obviously, of our P&L. This is what I've learned that's been pretty challenging and convicting, that the way that you spend is a reflection of your values.
Yep.
Bottom line.
Personally and in your company. Right. Bottom line. And so if you start seeing that P&L and you're like, man, that actually doesn't align with my values.
Yep.
Right. You got to start looking yourself in the mirror and then start shifting it to what you want your values to be. Because the Bible says where your treasure is, where your heart actually is.
That's
so
right.
You can trick yourself that, I think these are my values, but if it's not reflected on your P&L,
that's right.
Then you're not living a consistent life.
That's right.
And so I think it's keeping it at the forefront. I think it's not being afraid of the truth.
Yes.
That's why I think people are fearful to open up their bank account, because they're going to probably see overdraft. Don't be fearful of the truth. Name your nemesis.
That's great.
You can't defeat what you don't define.
Yeah, that's right.
So define it, you can defeat it. You can make a plan, right? And you can execute against that plan.
Just again, we got to talk to the design team that doesn't exist. The man of God, financier, said to name your nemesis. You cannot defeat what you do not define. Keep going.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, hold on. Hit him with one of the sauce. There we go. There we go. I want to ask you about how difficult it is to change, to evolve. Have you found yourself, sometimes leaders, we romanticize the past and we go, oh, those are the glory days. But I find even more difficult, a lot of people are right now today going, this is good.
Yeah.
I like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because to make the jump requires change.
Yeah.
I can't stay the same if we want to go there. I can't.
Yeah.
I have to change some positions. I got to change some people. I got to change some spending habits. I got to change the way I think. I got to change my involvement. Where I was once micromanaging, now I got to empower. How difficult has it been for you to change and evolve into the place where your organization is now?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things come to mind. You said this, I think, in a different context, but that your culture is perfect for what you're producing today.
Correct.
Whatever you have is a reflection of your culture. My pastor also said too that the minute you start reminiscing, or the minute you start having a rhythm of nostalgia, is when you stop innovating.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Jeez. And so the biggest force function for me to change is actually constraints.
Great.
Abundance actually keeps you comfortable.
Yeah.
Constraints forces you to innovate. And so that's why when you're in church planning mode, and when you're in startup mode, when you're trying to take something from 0 to 1 and you got nothing, you're the most creative.
That's right.
And so a lot of times I think people think that because of what they don't have, that's why they're not where they want to be. Actually, that lack of, or those constraints that you have, is a gift.
Right. So good.
That is a gift to be more creative than the person that has all the money in the bank, all the resources in the bank.
That's right.
I mean, that's why you see little small startups every single day. They out innovate large $1 trillion companies.
Yes.
All the time. And they disrupt industries because when you have an overabundance and you don't have mechanisms in place to continue to innovate, you can get disrupted.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Amazon spending $46 billion on R&D because they're convinced that they still need to grow. They still need to push. Compared to some of these other companies we looked at, it's the same old. No wonder their margins are dropping.
Exactly.
So important to keep on growing.
How much do you think that has to do with exhaustion? Why do you think so many people are too tired to risk, too tired to invent? I think so. My mind goes to romanticizing the past. I think a lot of leaders, a lot of gals and girls gals and guys woke up today and go like, I'm just trying to make it through today.
100%.
Have you faced that? Did you get decision fatigue, or have you yet hit a spot where you're like, I got to go recharge my batteries?
Yeah.
Because I'm not firing like I once was. Do you remember moments? How many years have you guys been into this now?
2.5 years.
So have you, in 2.5 years, have you hit any spot where you're like, I need a day or a week because I know I'm not excited like I once was?
How real can we get? Leadership leaning.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like that thought comes a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Totally.
I feel like culturally we're exhausted.
Yeah.
I feel like people are running and they're so active. Activity doesn't equal productivity.
No.
That's just the reality. And so it goes back to margin that we talked about, is that if you didn't create mechanisms and margins and rhythms in your life, the Bible talks about rhythms, right?
That's right.
Jesus talks about it. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. The unforced rhythms of grace. God is into that. If you don't have that in your life, if you don't have your date night, if you don't have the time with the kids, if you don't have that thing, whether it's basketball or golf or whatever that thing that recharges your well, you're actually gonna hit diminishing returns.
That's right. That's right.
And so I think that's an epidemic, honestly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just tired.
Yeah. Can I maybe push on that too? We all know people who probably work circles around us and are more rested than us.
Right.
They have more energy. They have more margin. So I'm curious, like it's not an amount of work. Is it an attitude towards it? Is it perspective? Like, what is this thing? How these guys are operating at that speed, that pace, but they're waking up smiles on their face. It's a vision thing. They just know what's ahead. Like, what is this thing?
But don't you think, I always think it's a cocktail of good decisions that got me into growth.
Yeah.
And it's a cocktail of bad decisions that got me into
not
trouble.
Not one thing.
It's never one thing. I always think everything, everything's connected.
Yes.
So even you're talking about the giving, that releases that dopamine. So it's all connected, right? So I always think like your sleep is that important.
Yeah.
Your ability to have quiet time for meditation or reading or reflection or to-do list, whatever, like you got to carve that out. Okay, you do need physical exercise.
Yep.
You do need your spiritual bucket to be full.
Yep.
You do need your emotional health intact. You need your relationships to be somewhat to connected. The best. It's all connected 100%. To create a confident, excited person. Someone that's tired, I always go, you're losing in a few areas, not one.
Wow.
It's not like, oh man, spiritually they're off, so look at them. It's so connected, and the chips start falling.
That is so true. That is so true. Like people oversimplify things sometimes. If you just win your morning.
Make your bed and your day will be great.
Make your bed and everything's gonna be neat.
It's like, no, it's like I got a whole world that I'm managing. I'm managing a world.
Well, what I have found, and this is not to oversimplify it, but a key that I found is that a lot of times in seasons of my life, I've seen how my capacity is correlated with the people around me and the people I've empowered around me.
Wow.
You said something that was so interesting, decision fatigue.
That's it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even the amount of work, but the weight of the decision.
Yep.
Okay, why am I making 100% of the weighty decisions in an organization and we're 2.5 years in? Okay, probably need to empower somebody.
That's right.
Right. And you empower, you expect, you correct. There's a process to it. But in saying that, if you're going so many years and you continue to grow and see success, but everything rides on you, you're going to get capped at some point.
That's exactly right. And I think that's where people get very fatigued. You get, and I think discouragement is something that we're really seeing.
Yeah.
I don't know, about 2.5 years in, I don't know if you faced discouragement, probably because of the rapid pace and the growth, probably not at the level of, there's a lot of disappointment in the world. There's a lot of discouragement. Here in LA, we live in the land of broken dreams. So it's kind of felt, I don't know if you guys feel that in Silicon Beach as much. Yeah. Silicon Beach, that's Playa Vista. Silicon Valley,
that's
sorry.
Here, yeah.
That's over by where we live. But how do you overcome setbacks? How do you have you faced disappointment? You said that you did.
A lot.
What do you do when you feel that way?
I mean, discouragement comes in a lot of forms in the company sense. If we weren't able to provide enough value for a customer,
great,
and they don't want to use us anymore, it's kind of like, oh, that was a personal attack to me.
A breakup.
Can't separate.
Overflow is me, and I am Overflow.
There you go.
Okay, step number 1, that's not true.
That's not true.
Let's create a little bit of separation, Vance. And so I've learned things around that. Honestly, a rhythm of gratitude is the best way for me to get out of a funk or to get out of a cycle of discouragement or despair, is just continuing to remind myself, what is going right? Who have we provided value for? Who are we winning with?
Do you talk to yourself like that on a regular basis, or do you journal that out, or you just, when you're going through it, you remind yourself
that period of time when it was months and it was the 50 no's season. I did a very Craig Rochelle thing. I literally wrote myself a mantra that took
so good.
45 seconds to read, and I did it for 90 days. It rewired my brain.
So good.
Right. And I've instilled that into my girls. Roush girls are strong and mighty. Roush girls are brave and kind. Roush girls are joyfully generous. Roush girls are kick butt tough. Me and my wife co-wrote
Love that.
So.
Love
that's
that.
right.
So you're it's like, oh, you're brainwashing your kids. Yeah, their brains need washing.
Yes,
totally.
What brain doesn't?
Yes.
My brain needs washing. And so
that is so good.
It's a rhythm, it's a reinforcement, and it's a rewiring of what our brains drift. I don't go to church because I have to. I go to church because I drift.
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly right.
Really good.
Right? If you don't see me for 6 weeks, I'm gonna be over here probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You pointed at here. There's a tire place out here, so we don't want to see you at the time.
You point too far.
Yeah. Okay, here's my last question. Which, by the way, you have been sensational, and I just appreciate the gift that is on your life and the clear, obvious intellect, but also just the humility and the resilience to keep going. I can't wait to see where you go. If you could encourage every leader that's listening with one thing to do or be about or discipline, just one tip, man, I want to tell you, stop doing this or start doing that, or just one bit of advice. Because I was give me something to put in my pocket that I can leave with.
Yeah, as you refresh others, you yourself will be refreshed.
Great.
You know, it's probably not new news to some people listening to this, but just something I have to remind myself all the time when I get in a funk is that if I feel like I'm lacking something, that means I need to give it.
Wow.
For the longest time, I'm looking for a business mentor. Let me just be one first.
That's right.
Jeez.
Right? You know, I'm missing this component in my life. Let me give that away in my life and just watch, right? We're wired to give.
So good. I love that. You know, and you use that reference, those who refresh others, will they themselves be refreshed? But it's so true. It's like, I always think about that way about friendship. Because I feel like we have so many people in our world that's like, I want a friend. I need a friend. It's like, I'm always like, guys, you know how to get friends, right? It's crazy. You be a friend.
Yeah.
You know, it's just all of life starts with me. And I like that. I like that responsibility that comes with life.
Yeah.
It's always me.
Yep.
Yes.
It's never their fault. It's never on them.
That's it.
It's never what they did. It's always on me. It's always my responsibility.
Right.
It's always ruling my spirit. It's always having that mindset. And so I love that. Thank you for coming by, bro. We're excited for Vive. We're excited for Overflow.
Yes.
I cannot wait to hear the stories of people that were able to give more than they ever could give, because of the resource and the platform that you guys created. So thank you so much. Leadership Leaning. Let's keep on leading.